Sure. So my name is Jean-Claude Homawoo. I'm the co-founder and chief product officer of Lori Systems, a technology company that's digitizing logistics on the African continent. So getting capital on the continent is not always easy, especially in our beginnings, in our seed stage. We were able to raise from a global investor and subsequently from a Chinese investor as well for our Series A. So DST was our lead investor for our seed stage, and Hill House Capital was our lead investor for our Series A. So I do think that German and European investors are missing out on an opportunity to be part of the growth of the African continent, particularly when it comes to technology. We've seen a lot of American investors, we've seen a good number of Chinese investors, and there are some European investors. We haven't seen very many German investors, unfortunately. There are a number of French companies that are LPs or GPs in VC funds that are operating on the continent, but unfortunately no German investors yet. So I think information is the biggest thing. There's massive information asymmetry, I think, between the perception of the continent in Germany and certainly amongst German investors and reality. I think in large part Chinese investors have been present because of a top-down directive from their government, but also because they remember what their country looked like perhaps a decade or two ago, and so Africa is not quite as scary a place. And we're now seeing American investors enter the continent, especially with recent exits. So I think telling the story of the African continent to German investors is one place to start, but also the German government could work with the governments of, say, Kenya, Nigeria, Egypt, and the other startup ecosystems on the continent to ensure that German investors have the visibility of what's actually happening on the continent. And it's not just German traditional investors, but I think corporations also have a role to play. And given Germans' prowess when it comes to manufacturing, I would think there are a lot of opportunities for them to be a part of this boom. So what we mean when we say that Africa is the leapfrogging continent is that technology is allowing Africa to skip certain steps in development that the West has followed. So you take telephony, for instance. In the West, we went through wired phone lines. Actually, we went through Morse code and then through wired phone lines and then to wireless. Because the wireless technology really applies to the state of the continent today, they don't have to go through the previous steps. This really applies to a number of different industries. In fintech alone, we will never have physical bank. Well, probably not never. We do today, but I don't think physical banks will have the kind of reach that they have in the West. Why? Because mobile banking is here, and it will make much more sense for citizens of the continent to use mobile banks. Same with a number of different technologies where really adopting what is newest rather than going through the previous stages is going to be very impactful. Education is another one that comes to mind. It is very likely that 10 years from now we look back and we realize that most of the education on the continent in the previous 10 years has happened through online education, whereas in the West it has been through traditional schooling systems and universities. Yeah, so one of the things that technology is credited for is lowering costs in general. Technology itself, abides by Moore's law. So the cost of building technology and the cost of technology itself continues to decrease every year. And therefore, the cost of industries that are enabled by technology often is impacted in the same way. So part of the reason we went into logistics is because with technology, we can make logistics more efficient, which in turn decreases the cost contribution of logistics in the price of goods that are moved. So through technology, through applying technology to logistics, we're able to make goods more affordable for local populations, but we're also able to make countries more competitive globally because now their goods can be shipped out, exported internationally, and be more price competitive. So technology has a really important role to play in lowering costs, which allows the entire African continent to be more competitive.